Hello, and welcome back to the Right Brain Podcast.
We're here
We're here.
again.
This is a fitting episode because it's my birthday month. And my
That's
mother,
right.
who is in the audience, always taught me that your birthday is not one day, it's an entire month that you get to celebrate and get attention from people.
Yeah, it's lovely as a husband to celebrate your wife's birthday.
Yeah, you get
for a full month. But yes, but your mother deserves it because she's so
she does deserve
she should
it.
be celebrated every day.
She's the queen.
Yes.
And so this month I'm a Pisces, obviously, and that is, the most psychic zodiac. We won't get too woo-woo here. We're going to get a little woo-woo.
We're gonna get a little
But but that's because there's evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
We always got the research, people.
Yes. We always have to
I don't personally have the research. He comes with the research. That's not my job. But anyway, we got evidence to back it up and how it actually has to do with the brain. And there's things that have been proven.
For what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Psychic abilities.
That's right. There we go.
Yeah.
I mean, psychic abilities is something that, it's been around forever. You go back to, what was that in Greek, in Greek mythology, not the Furies, but the,
I should know this because you used to read me Greek mythology before I went to bed.
Yeah. At Delphi, the oracle at Delphi. Where, they would never go to war without getting approval from this woman who was a psychic. And if they would go to like some cave and there would be these fumes coming up from the cave, and some people speculate that maybe it was a hallucinogen or whatever. But anyway, it goes back forever. And of course, there has been some kind of research in the past, but there's been a lot of it recently, a lot of talk with the telepathy tapes and other things about it. So I came across this video, and for me as a researcher, it resonated with me because they were talking about actual research and finding a gene that may be related to psychic abilities. So I sent that to you, and it kind of set off, okay, let's actually, talk about this because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you want to start off with the video?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We found a fascinating preliminary finding on chromosome 7 on a non-coding region that's called TNRC7. And what was fascinating about this part of the genome was that the psychics had the original or wild type form, and the controls had a mutation, meaning that it mutated towards not expressing the psychic ability. This was so intriguing to us. We went and looked at genomic databases that had thousands and thousands of people and found that this wild type original version was present in over 90% of the people in that data set, which really supports this idea that we all have this innate ability to be psychic.
This discovery raises an intriguing question. What could have led to a mutation away from psychic ability?
But we did an analysis comparing the genomes in more technologically advanced countries versus less advanced, and we found increased mutations in the technologically advanced countries. That was significant, just supported our hypothesis.
Okay, so that was the video.
Yes. So what is she saying? In their research, and it's actual research, because I actually went then and did a literature search and actually found the scientific papers she's talking about, and we'll show them in a moment as well, that they found that in people that were expressing psychic abilities, they were able to document that it had something to do with chromosome 7 and to a particular part of chromosome 7. And they noted that people that were psychic had what they call a wild type, or the original version of the chromosome, or in the gene, And in people that were not psychic, they had a mutated version. So then they did a large database, as she's showing, and found that, in the thousands and thousands of people, that were just, average, ordinary people, that 90% had the wild type, the original type. And they found that as you went to more technologically advanced societies, there was more of a mutated type, which means that in more advanced societies, people lose their ability to be psychic. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating because, what we talk about all the time is that over the last, couple of 100 years or even longer, since the advent of Western civilization, moving to things like literature and science, books, rationality, we've moved more and more and more into this kind of left brain society, and more analytical and more concrete and more looking, away from spirituality. And when we look at right brain, left brain, I mean, the right brain is really much more spiritual. It's much more moral. It's much more connected to other people. We talked about like Jill Bolte Taylor, when she had a stroke in her left brain, she felt like she was huge and she was connected to the whole universe. And so I think that's more the natural state of humans. Remember that, going back to early humans, Stone Age, what made you survive was your ability to hunt and gather, and your ability to communicate with other people and get along with other people, and mostly nonverbal communication, because they didn't have a lot of, sophisticated verbal language. They didn't have any written material. They didn't have anything like math. And, it was really more intuitive. It was about survival, and it was about getting together with people as groups and, sharing stories and all of those different things. For most of the time that humans have existed, being really good in right brain skills is what made you survive.
Well, yeah, I even think about I have a friend who's blind, and he can sense that you're there, kind of I feel like when someone has a sense taken away from them, all the other senses get heightened. You have to lean on intuition, and you have to lean on kind of, I don't know, a higher.
Well, but what you're
something.
alluding to is that psychic ability is literally like a sense that we're all born with, and that's what this study is
That's
kind of
exactly
saying.
what I was saying.
Right. So that's kind of cool, which means that if it's a sense that we're all born with, there's an area in the brain that regulates it, right?
Yeah.
Meaning like any other sense, it starts in the brain. And that's the cool thing, is to try to figure out, well, where in the brain, and is it more of a right brain or left brain skill? Or like a lot of senses, is there a right brain and left brain version of it?
Right. That's what we were kind of started to.
Right. And so that's the cool
about.
thing. So now when I look at that, and I don't want to get too crazy into this, I could go off on stories, but
Go off, gang.
there's I work with kids that are non-speaking autism.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And many, many, many of the mothers and many of the kids that through spelling and whatever, actually say they're telepathic, that they can speak to one another through, telepathy.
Right.
And so now you look at that and say, okay, what I was just saying is maybe some telepathic abilities are more in natural state. And it would make sense, right? Like if you are hunting as a hunting party, and that's a very right brain type of skill, and you're going out, you don't want to talk to one another because the animal will hear that. It would be really great if you could just, one, read each other's body and body language, but it would be really good if you could actually be connected with each other mentally, to know what each other is going to do, to work together as a team. It would make sense, right? That would actually be really good for survival, rather than trying to yell at one another or talk to one another to plan something. You need to just kind of be intuitive with one another, connected, so that you can take a group of people and work together as one unit, which is really what the right brain does. It, looks at the big picture. It brings details together into a big picture. It's like a band. A band is going to play together. They're all 4 or 5 separate individuals, but they need to literally play as one.
Yeah.
And so, but people with autism, as we've shown, are really these gifted left brain geniuses. So then you look at it and say, okay, so why, one, would people with autism seem to, in my experience, and the more severely autistic, the more, would they seem to be more likely psychic than the average person? And like they say in this video, maybe we all have that ability, but I think because their brains are so immature and because the expression of their genes is affected, that they may have more of the natural type. They may not get that mutated version, right? Even though, they're a byproduct in large part of a more technologically advanced world.
Yeah, well, it's interesting what you were saying because obviously we always talk about how right brain people are very intuitive and can feel what other people are feeling and kind of the nonverbal senses. And then you're saying that a lot of the autistic kids that you work with are, and that being that they're a lot more left brain dominant, as we've said, which is the opposite of right brain dominant like me. And you're saying that they can like actually hear voices and everything. And then I wonder about how I feel like maybe more right brain people are the ones that are more like clairvoyant or can speak to sort of like another, I don't know. It is getting kind of woo-woo what we're saying, but it's like, they often say you could speak to ancestors or people who have passed or, kind of.
Yeah, like mediums.
Things that are in a different world sort
Realm,
of, or
yeah.
dimension or parallel universe or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the kids with autism that have these abilities are speaking to the people that are here on Earth with us.
First of all, just the fact that we both right away go to like, oh, it's woo-woo, right? So it really isn't if you think about it, because if we look at it like the ability to communicate on some nonverbal level with whatever is a sense that's part of the brain.
Yeah.
And if we look at that through, the animal kingdom, I mean, other animals have senses. They can sense light waves that we can't sense.
True.
I mean, so
they know when it's going to rain. They know all the things.
No, literally, they see different frequencies of light. The light waves are there. We just don't have the ability to sense them, but they do. They can sense different smells that we can't sense. So just because we can't sense it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and doesn't mean there aren't other animals or species or whatever that have, parts of their brain that can sense those things. We know that happens. That's science. That's without a doubt. So if we look at it and say, like, I always tell people, one of the things I test all the time is sense of smell. Nobody looks at that. I mean, think about it. The last time you went to a doctor, other than around COVID time, did anybody ever check your smell? And especially a neurologist. Even though we know that loss of sense of smell is one of the first signs of Alzheimer's, and also it's often related to schizophrenia. I have found that,
I did not know that, but
yeah, I have found that most kids that are on the autism spectrum or, left brain dominant ADHD, they have completely abnormal senses of smell, and many of them completely absent. They don't even know how to sniff. And so I explain to parents, and I say, not only is smell important for how we choose food and how we eat, but what most people don't realize is that the networks that underlie smell in humans are the same networks that are related to social ability. And there's an area of our brain called the orbital frontal cortex on the right, which is our highest brain, social brain. In other mammals, that's primarily related to smell. And I tell them, how do animals socialize? I mean, they socialize by smelling one another, right? So that is the way that is their social ability. That's the area of the brain. And we have the same area of the brain, but we have another center that's built on top of it that's more advanced in our prefrontal cortex that then allows us to translate that into social awareness and social skill and all of that. So that same sense that is smell at a higher level is socialization. So if you think of the ability to read somebody's body posture and kind of have empathy and understand what they're thinking, if you took that same sense and made it higher, would you literally feel psychically what they feel, right? Could you literally be on a wavelength with them where you would literally like be in their thoughts? Like not only be able to speculate by the outside, but literally see the same thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So you could think about it scientifically that it's just another level of sense ability that other animals, animals may be psychic all the time. We don't know. I mean, they obviously have these senses. I mean, the way animals and birds are.
I love to bring up dolphins.
Yes, you dolphin.
Dolphins talk telepathically. You're going to tell me that they're, oh my God, I had a dream about a dolphin last night. That just reminded me. I had a dream I saved Paige from a dolphin.
Wow. Did you check on Paige to see if she...
I should check on her, see if she's okay. Anyway, they speak telepathically.
Well, and that goes to speak that they may actually do that, only we don't know it because we can't literally measure it. But if we speculate that they have telepathic abilities, and if you look at animals like the way birds, move together and everything, it looks like it's a collective consciousness, right? And so
what you're saying is this shouldn't be as woo-woo as we're saying that it is, because the reality is that if we all just tapped in a little harder, that we could just accept that these are things we lean on, whether you're into that or not. These types of, even like a feeling of danger or overwhelming feeling of like all of those things come to you from someplace.
So anyway, to put more science to it, Zach, can you put up the papers that we... Okay, so this first paper says, let me just read the top of it. Again, general psychic ability, a pilot case control, exome sequencing study. So
genetics of psychic ability.
This is Walbeth and Walbey and company. So in this is an actual research paper. I mean, legitimate research that was done. And again, looking at the chromosome 7. And so this is really the research that she's referring to in this video. Can you show the next paper? Again, genetics of psychic ability, a pilot's case control, and really same group, right? So what we're looking at is, there's little research. If you go down a little bit to the highlights, so limited research has formally evaluated the genetics of psychic ability. The case control study compared DNA of 13 vetted cases, 10 matched controls. 1 non-coding sequence was conserved in the wild type form of the psychic case. So this is the actual research study. And so there is actual science, and it would make sense that if there is genetics that are related to it, that would relate. What do genes do? Genes create proteins, and they have an effect on the brain, and that means that there would be an area of the brain. And as in most senses, all senses, we have right brain and left brain versions. So like with vision, the left brain sees detail. It sees the little pieces. It sees the trees in the forest. And it has what we call local processing, which means that people with autism have enhanced ability to see detail. But they have decreased ability to see what we call global processing. They don't see the big picture. We have that with hearing. We have it with touch. We have it with smell. There's a left brain and right brain version of smell. So it would make sense that if this is an ability, that we have a left brain and right brain version of it, even with the same gene, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah. So I think that with what they're talking about in this paper is they're looking at psychic ability, which is more the ability to like speak to another person or read their thoughts. But there are other people that have what they call second sight, that are more clairvoyant, that are mediums.
Yeah.
And that's different. It seems like it's more images or feelings rather than communicating by words, right?
Right.
And the experience that I've had with most of the autistic kids that express that ability is that although some of them can see. Literally, it seems like they're seeing through their parents' eyes. Most of it seems to be communication verbally. And it's fascinating because these are kids that can't speak, but we know that they can spell. So we know their verbal ability is absolutely incredible, but they can talk to their parents or other people and to each other. And again, if you communicate with them, or if you listen to the telepathy tapes, they go through that. They don't really put science to it very well. But so for me, I think that there may be a left brain, right brain version. So the way I look at this is that we all have these genes that probably is the more natural state of humans to be able to psychically communicate, which makes sense, especially in a hunter-gatherer world where you may not have language left, but you need to be able to communicate in some way, and beyond just reading each other's body and facial expression and tone of voice. And that is the natural state. But as we move to a more technologically analytical left brain world, that gene has become suppressed and replaced by technology, by writing, by analysis, by math, and by prediction, and all of those things.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT. And that, in some people who are very right brain dominant, they may still have those abilities like you. And in people that may have, that epigenetically some of their genes are not being expressed, that it may also affect that mutated version of the gene so that they have the more wild type, and that they're able to use a certain part of their brain at a higher level, because we know that they can do that. They can do math things and crazy things, and that may explain that. So that's the way I look at this, and there's science underneath it, and it's pretty cool, I think. So when you talk about people that are very right brain dominant and being very sensitive, so there's this story about when you were being born. There's a long story. I won't go into the whole thing, but there was a woman, and her name was Joanne, and she was a patient of mine.
Yeah. No, I was going to say also, because I was trying to think about what I was about to say, but then I was listening to what you're saying, and I forgot. But I was going to say that you're also sort of like a magnet for psychics. You always have been.
Yeah, I have.
I feel like you haven't had like an experience that recently, but for a while there, for a good stretch there, maybe because you were like on your path to what you became now, that you had people cheering you on along the way, keeping you there.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't need it as much now because you're crushing it. But yeah, that's something we always bonded over. I've had a couple of experiences like that, but you had quite a few when I was
growing
growing
up.
I've had a lot. Yeah.
I've had a lot. And I've never
So maybe
really...
you had your frequency open.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe now I'm at a point where people are afraid to say that to me. But yeah, I remember the first real experience that I had was this patient, Joanne, and I had no idea that she was a psychic, and she did it. I mean, it's partly what she did for a living. And I went to adjust her, and she had a couple of bad car accidents. And she said that after the car accidents, later on, she told me that trauma brings out psychic ability sometimes.
That's
more,
beautiful. I hope there's another way for it to
pretty interesting, because you think about how trauma what is it doing? It might, allow that wild type of the gene to become expressed, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So she, I went to adjust her, and she literally acted like, before I even touched her, as I just started to touch her, like she was hit by lightning or something. And she jumped away from me and looked at me. And I was like, what the heck was that? And she looked at me and said, your wife's pregnant. And I was like, imagine you have no idea someone's psychic. She's just a patient.
Yeah, I feel like she could have been a little bit more chill about that.
Right. I've known for 5 years. And she jumps back and goes, your wife's pregnant. I'm like, what? Like, where's that coming from? Right. Anyway, long story short, it turned out she was exactly correct. And she predicted all of you being born. And with you, at one point, she said, your wife's going to be pregnant with a little girl in the spring. And it's going to be born in the springtime or around springtime. And she said, and she's going to be psychic. She's going to have the ability. And when you were born, you were Pisces. And she said, yeah, she's going to be able to see it.
The prophecy.
And so it's interesting because you were so sensitive as a child to everything that we didn't even know, right? Like that sense of danger, all the things we've talked about. But as we went through your life, you've been able to speak about what you feel your abilities are and what you can do. So why don't you talk about that?
Well, I feel like maybe we've like touched upon it on this podcast before, but yeah, I don't know. When I was growing up, I just like, I could like hear voices a lot, which doesn't sound good, but I would like hear different voices, but it depends on like how I feel like how connected I am to, I don't know. It's like always after a breakup or sort of something traumatic, I guess happens. That's when those things are, the most forward for me. But yeah, I would get like sleep paralysis a lot and yeah, just hear things. And when I would get sleep paralysis, like there was a couple times that I actually feel like I was being like lifted out of my body over my bed and like turned, and it would really freak me out. And I always like fight it. And then the one time that I didn't fight it and I just leaned in, that's when I astral projected.
Right. So that's pretty cool. So talk about that. Like you only did that one time, the astral projection, because you told me about that.
Yeah.
But you told me like you went somewhere and you like where like pretty
yeah, I was like zooming. I was literally laying in well, actually, I was sleeping in Devin's bed because she was gone, and I really wanted to sleep next to a window. You don't get a lot of fresh air in New York City. So I was like, yes, Devin's gone. I'm going to sleep in her bed. And the window was open, and I had just watched a documentary, I think, on like aliens or whatever. I was like very open. I was feeling real spacey. And then I went to go to sleep, and I had sleep paralysis. And normally, like when that would happen, I would start freaking out. Obviously, anyone does because you can't move your whole body, but like your mind's awake. But then I like leaned into it because I felt like my body like lifting again. And anytime that would happen, I would be like, rah! And until I woke up. But I just like leaned into it, and I literally came out of my body. They say you get attached by like a silver cord, and I flew out the window, and I was flying, and I like saw other people, and I was like, hey guys, what's up? This is my first time. Oh my God. And I was
other people were flying, other people were projecting.
Yeah, there was just like black souls. Not that sounds like dark. It wasn't dark. It was like good energy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started getting in my head a little bit, and I came out of it.
Mm.
And I was in a tree in Rockville Center down the block from our house. And there was another person in the tree with a bow and arrow. It sounds really crazy. And now it sounds like it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It was very much not a dream. And I know that for a fact. And whatever, think I'm crazy after this. I don't care.
No, again, we want to talk about it in psychic terms, in scientific terms, in brain terms. So if we start with the supposition that there's an area of our brain.
Oh, sorry. Also, there's been quite a few times I've had dreams about things that end up being true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll like call that person or whatever. And then they're like, damn. Like it's normally like I'll have a dream of like someone I love like in distress. And then I wake up and I'm like, what the hell was that? And then if I call that person, I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, no, I'm not. How would you know that? So there's quite a few times that's happened too.
You know what we have to do? We have to get you tested to look to see if your chromosome 7 is the wild type or the psychic type.
That's true. All right. I'm down.
We have to figure out how to do that. And then we can check everybody in our family to see, because I never felt like I had psychic abilities or anything. I mean, never really felt any of that. But, maybe your mom, I don't know if you've ever felt that. No?
Yeah, but mom is like, I actually do describe you sometimes as somewhat psychic because your level of intuition is insane. And you ask me questions all the time if I choose to like omit something where I'm just like, you know what? I'll tell her that when it becomes more developed or when it becomes whatever. And you'll be like, is this happening in your life right now? And I'm like, what the hell? Guess I'll just tell you anyway. So she definitely has that. But it's like a deep intuition type vibe.
Yeah, and it's annoying because it's like, let's say if she
You said maternal? Yeah, that makes sense.
If she says to me, okay, don't eat this or whatever, and if I was to go and let's say I ate something and I walk in the door, she'd be like, "Did you eat that? Like, how did you know that? Like, how did you know that I did that?"
Probably has like chocolate all over his like sleeve. He's like, "How'd you know?"
Oh, let's not talk about chocolate.
Oh, Dad's on a strict diet.
Yeah, especially if it's psilocybin chocolate.
Do you want to tell that? No.
I don't know. Should I tell that story? No. Mom says no.
Mom says no. All right, we'll tell it another time.
It's actually a pretty funny story.
It is a really funny story, but it's not good.
Well, it's probably better to tell it now than let people think they're their own.
True. Yeah. Lean in, Mom. Just let him have it.
So
it's already a woo-woo episode.
My wife was away in somewhere, Florida, I think, and I was home by myself. And I've been, really being strict with my diet. I've been doing a lot of fasting, and I've been really staying away from carbs as much as possible, and really feeling great, being really healthy with it and everything. But I went to the gym a couple of days when she was, and I did some other type of lifting, and I was sore. My legs were sore. I did a lot of leg work, and when you're like really sore, you feel like depleted for like sugar sometimes.
Whatever your excuse is for what you did.
Yeah. So anyway, your mom always has little candies like hid in the house that only she can eat, and so I just felt like I just wanted something sweet, little chocolate. And she wasn't there, so I could, get away with it, even though I knew she'd figure out I probably had it. And so I found this little, kind of like chocolate bar thing in the cabinet. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right. I just took one piece and I was like, oh, this tastes pretty good. I was like, all right, I'll just eat this bar of chocolate. And so I did. And then about 30 minutes later, I'm watching TV and I start feeling really weird, like really lightheaded. Like I was going to pass out. My body I started feeling numb all over. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I really got nervous because I thought, I don't know. I mean, this is, I never experienced anything like that in my life. And I felt not good. My stomach bothered me a little bit, but it was just weird. And I felt really lightheaded and tired and almost like I was going to pass out. And it was early. It was like 9 o'clock. And it was like a weekend, like Friday night or something. So I was like, I'm just going to go to bed. So as I'm going up the stairs, it was difficult being in the, getting myself ready, brushing my teeth. I was feeling weirder and weirder. And I really was concerned that I was just going to pass out all of a sudden. And nobody was home. And I'm like, okay. So all of a sudden, as I'm getting to bed, I'm thinking, what the heck is this? And I'm thinking like a doctor. I'm trying to think rational. And I'm thinking, oh, those freaking
could have used
chocolates.
Your intuition.
I was like, those chocolates had something in them because I know occasionally your mom might get like, like the mushroom chocolates. I never use them and I don't like them.
She dabbles.
And I'm like, oh my God, I just ate a whole bar.
Yeah, but like, how are your dreams that night? Yeah, you ate an entire bar of mushrooms.
Yes.
Also, who just sits down and eats a whole bar of chocolate? What are you, Augustus Gloop?
It wasn't a big bar. It was a little bar. Yeah, I'm like, what's her name?
Veruca Salt.
Veruca Salt. I love that name. But yeah, it wasn't like a huge amount of chocolate or anything, but it was, definitely a pretty decent sized bar. And then I realized, oh my God. Now I'm thinking, did I just poison myself? Am I going to die?
No, you're just going to like have a great time probably.
It was actually, there was a show, this shrinking show that we watched.
Oh yeah, I love that show.
There was just an episode where he did the same thing. He took his son's gummies and he didn't realize they were like.
Yes, that was you.
and he's walking down the street and he's like freaking out. If it was daytime, I would have been like that. So now I'm just like, I'm tripping. I mean, I'm literally tripping. I'm going on an acid trip. And like everything, colors, everything was moving. I didn't know where I was. Wow. But then there was a part of me that was like, well, maybe this is like when you do ayahuasca and I'll be able to see things and have these psychic visions. And no.
No?
I just was paranoid that I was going to die. And I didn't know, like, and then I thought your mom was with me. And I'm like, where is she?
Oh, cute.
But then she wasn't with me. And then I'm also like, but I haven't heard from her at all. Like, usually she would call me. And is there something?
She forgot about you.
It was just, it was it was really very weird. But I did not have like a psychic vision in that period of time.
We're going to have to check your chromosomes, sir.
We're going to have to check them.
Did you have any cool dreams?
I don't remember having cool. I had some really bad dreams, like things like attacking me or like bugs or like, I don't know, some worm things. Yeah, it was definitely not pleasant. There was nothing pleasant about the experience at all.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's why I usually stay away from any of that. I've never been able to do good with like marijuana and anything like that. I just does not sit with me well. It really just goes to like paranoia and stuff. So
yeah.
But anyway, back to our psychic ability. So this woman predicted that you would be like this.
I'm the psychic.
So when you would describe if you have psychic abilities, what would you say it is? Is it like images? Is it just feelings? Obviously,
I think
flying,
it's feelings.
That's your superpower.
It's flying. No, it's like I could just like definitely feel things, definitely hear voices, definitely the dreams thing. But I feel like there's been twice since I moved to Nashville. I've been here for 4.5 years, almost 5 at this point. Once I started dating somebody, should have never dated him. Probably wouldn't have made this podcast had I not dated him. So that there's the positive side.
There you go.
But I did have a girl come up to me within like the first like couple months of me dating him at a bar. She was just like called me over. I think I might have told this before, but yeah, she was just like hanging out with her friends and she called me over like to compliment my boots. And she was like, sit down. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, stop dating that man who's texting you right now. And you told him not to text you. And like said all this stuff. And I was like, what the hell? And she said like all of this stuff. And I was like, I actually at one point was like, you're kind of freaking me out a little bit. She was like, she like snapped out of it kind of. And she was like, sorry. And like just like went and like hung out with her friends. It was so strange.
Is that the same woman that told you about San Francisco?
No, that was a different woman. And then there was another time. So that definitely should have listened to that girl wherever she is. Thanks. Didn't listen to you, but maybe I should have. But then there was another time my friend was on a date with this woman and he had no idea that she was a psychic. And he brought her to a bar to meet up with all of us. And she sat next to me and she like said all of this crazy stuff to me. That was very positive. And then she did it to my friend that was sitting across from us and like knew what my friend had been writing in her notebook, knew like this, like who she had just worked with that she wasn't allowed to tell anyone about yet. She like literally like described all of the outfits she was like designing in her room that she didn't tell anyone about. It was very strange, but it like went to show me that this woman obviously knew what she was talking about. Moving forward, I went to meet up with her again and she was probably like 42. And she was like, yeah, all of the psychic abilities kind of came to me like basically in my 40s, which a lot of women have said when I've like looked things up that it kind of comes to them later in life. But I met up with her again about a year later just to like check in. And she was like, yeah, I was kind of new to all of my abilities at the time. And so I was just saying what was coming to me in the moment. But she was like, I don't do that anymore because everything that's like told to you. And I feel like this is kind of the movement of what psychics have been doing now. Like in the past, it's been like, this is your future. Now they're like, your future is malleable. You can change it based on whatever frequency you're on. If you're in like a high point of your life or in a high mental state, then you can have the highest outcome. If you're in a bad state, you could change things. So the future's always able to be changed and it's kind of like up to you. But the things that come to them at the time are like, I don't know, I guess what's the most accurate for whatever frequency you're vibrating on.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is that if you look at the science of it and the neuroscience and the physics of it, we, in my lab, we've actually written some papers on consciousness and we've done, research on that to a certain extent. And there's really kind of two lines of thought in the scientific world. One is that consciousness emerges in our brain, meaning as our brain grows, as our brain gets more connected, And the more connected and faster it becomes, there's a certain point, a threshold, where consciousness emerges out of it. And it's, even most serious scientists will say, we're not sure how that happens, but it's probably something on a quantum level, but it has to do with the degree and the level of connectivity. And our brain is the most connected brains. And so we believe we have, the highest level of consciousness. Consciousness being, and again, how you define consciousness, but especially, being aware and being aware that you're aware. So like self-awareness to me is like the highest level of human consciousness. We relate it somewhat to mirror recognition. Like when a child at around 2 starts to actually recognize themselves in a mirror and know that's them, and they become connected and they become an individual person and they become consciously aware of their own actions and that they have some level of agency over their life. So that's could be one definition of consciousness. And we believe that because we have the biggest, most connected brains, we have that higher level of consciousness. The other thought in the scientific world, and it literally is legit, like this guy named Roger Penrose, who was the partner for Stephen Hawkins, the guy who found black holes and all of that stuff. And he later on...
a little bit in trouble right now.
What? Oh, yeah. He was because of the whole Epstein thing?
Yeah.
What was he doing with Epstein? He couldn't move a finger. Like, what is he doing?
I don't know, but...
I have to believe that if he was involved, somebody made him. I mean, they could just wheel him, like they could wheel him up next to Epstein and go, take a picture with this guy. We can screw him later. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Mom's telling us to
all right. But anyway, Roger Penrose, a lot of his research went into the consciousness realm. And he and others really argue more that when our brain gets more connected, it becomes able to tap in to higher frequencies, and consciousness is in the universe, meaning there's a universal consciousness that we're able to tap into. And that, so it's like, being able to tune a radio, that at a certain level of connectivity, we can tap into that. And so with that, you might think that, okay, if there's a universal consciousness that we all basically tap into, then we can share thoughts and ideas and words through that. It's like a Wi-Fi. It's like we all connect into the same Wi-Fi. And so through that Wi-Fi, we can all communicate. And that is more and more what I think, that there's a universal consciousness. And in that universal consciousness, if you're able to tap into that frequency, and if we have an area of our brain that has a sense of, where other animals may already tap into that, where they can tap into that frequency, like tapping into a different frequency of light waves or sound waves, and they can tap into that, then some humans are able to tap into that and then be able to more, readily communicate. And I think that if you're speaking to people on a psychic level, it's probably the same area of your left brain that has something to do with speaking, just like we speak in our head to ourselves. Then that same area where we speak in our head, then we hear others, then we could speak to others and hear others psychically. It's just a different level of frequency that we're able to tap into. And I do believe that actually is the case.
Well, there are people that believe like ideas are like downloads from sort of like a collective consciousness. Like if you're writing a song and like it comes to you, if you don't like put that song out or you don't use that idea, then like maybe you'll hear somebody else like wrote very similar thing, and then you're like, well, how the heck did they get that idea? But sometimes people think like it's like a download that you get from a higher consciousness, and if you don't use it, it goes back into that.
Right. Well, that's the whole, what is it called? The Akashic record.
Akashic. Now stop it. Now you're going to make me have a list.
Record.
Akashic
where
records.
If there is a universal consciousness and if there is a universal brain, let's say, and it's interesting because, again, when you look at thinking of that, if you think of the whole universe as like one big brain, and let's think of it as, let's say, God's brain, a creator's brain, then there are a lot of things about it that are similar to the way our brains individually work. And if you look at the idea of fractals, you know what fractals are?
No.
Is that almost everything is a fractal. Like if you look at like that a tree and you look at the leaf is a fractal of the whole tree. It's a smaller version. It's an exact smaller version of the entire tree. So that, you know, and as you get smaller and smaller, bits of the tree are really exact replicas of the whole tree, just smaller and smaller versions. So that's what fractal means. So if you look at our brain as being a fractal of the brain of the universe, it's like a smaller version of it. Like the way our brain connects is really not actually through physical connectivity, but things become linked in space and time. And that's what our memories are. And that's how we think. And that's what a thought is. And if we look at, you know, the concepts of quantum entanglement, or if we look at things like dark matter or dark energy, it's very similar to the way the brain works. Like we have this kind of like dark energy in our brain that is linking things together that we can't really see. We can measure it, but we can't really see it, and we don't really know where exactly it comes from. So, you know, it's kind of really interesting to think about things on that way. And I will tell you that we have this one mom that we've been working with that came to us, and she's from Canada. But anyway, her daughter came in, beautiful young little girl, very young. You know, I mean, I don't know, 8, 9, something like that. And she was working with your brother. And he was telling us this story about how, you know, we tell the parents, your child can't speak, but they know everything. And they know so much more than you think. And she was really skeptical. And she was like, she doesn't know anything. I'll ask her to do things and she never does it. And so we were saying, well, you know, this is how we operate. This is what we believe. She went in and did some spelling with, you know, Nancy, the woman that works with me. And what was coming out of her was unbelievable. And the mother was like overwhelmed. And then they went back home and the mom started, you know, working with someone that could spell with her daughter. And
my dad's talking about using letter boards with autistic kids.
Yeah.
They use like their hands to spell things.
And the mom was freaking out. She was like, wait a second, this is crazy. They realized that they went to different countries and she could spell in every language they went to. She knew 5 languages fluently. And, but the real thing that freaked her out was that she said to her mom that I was walking with Jesus and I met my brother. And mom was like, you don't have a brother. She said, no, you had a miscarriage with Theodore. And the mother freaked out because she did have a miscarriage. She never told the father about, she never told anybody about, and the name was going to be Theodore.
Whoa.
And she said, I met my brother. He was walking with Jesus with me. And the mom asked her, how do you know this? And she said, I'm able to tap into a universal intelligence. Like literally, that's how she described it. There's this universal intelligence that I can, and all information is there and I can go there.
Whoa.
This is real stuff. This is like, and it was just, it's crazy. And the mom is almost like, I wish I didn't know this. Like, I mean, like almost like she's overwhelmed. Like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Like was really skeptical and really resistant to it. So it wasn't like, you know, her mom is making this stuff up, because even now she's like, I don't really want to even know that she can do this.
Right.
So anyway, it's pretty wild stuff out there.
Wow. Okay, we really went on a roller coaster today.
Yeah. But roller coasters are fun
But,
for some people.
As I'm gonna,
Not for you, because you get nauseous really easy.
I do like that.
You get motion sickness.
I haven't been on a roller coaster in a while. But okay, so as I always put the pressure on you to do, can you wrap this up in a little bow for us at the end here?
So we started off with the fact that there was, you know, actually legitimate research, or, you know, actual published research on the potential genetics of psychic ability, and showed that probably all of us are naturally born with a gene, which most psychics say, by the way. They say anybody can do this. Even the autistic kids say that anybody can do this. So if there are genes for it, those genes must have something to do with, with affecting brain development. And there may be a sense that we all have, like every other sense. And that some people may be able to utilize that sense at a higher level. And that technology and the more advanced has suppressed a lot of that ability for various reasons, maybe because it's not really socially as acceptable. And, back in the age when they used to call people witches and burn them, right? A lot of that would be for maybe psychic abilities or things. So to survive, it might have been a pretty smart thing to suppress that ability, right? And so I think that there is this kind of sense. And then if we look at the physics, and then if we look at it from a brain, I think there might be a right brain and a left brain version, with the right brain being maybe a little bit more medium and clairvoyant, or maybe second sight, or maybe more feeling things almost on a spiritual level, whereas the left brain may be more expressed in literally words, like reading somebody's brain words or their thoughts, or being able to communicate verbally to one another through that. And I think on the physics standpoint, I think the best explanation is that there is actually a universal consciousness that is out there that we all tap into in our brain when our brain is operating at a certain level of connectivity and functioning, and that some people with more advanced speed and network and connectivity in their brain can tap into a different level of that consciousness and then share that consciousness with other people. And we know that people in the autism world, their left brain is operating at a different speed than most people. I mean, it's just they're able to do things at superhuman levels. And when we look at right brain dominant people, we talk about the right brain genius and, writing songs and being able to do things and tap into emotions and also feel emotions at a higher level. That is also, I think, a genius level of hyperconnectivity in the right brain. And some people that have even a higher level of that may be able to tap into, again, that universal consciousness on a way, and even, be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. Because, the idea that in the universe that past, present, and future is really all there. It's not separate. And so anyway, I think there's science underneath it. And I think that there has been some decent research, but applying it to the right brain, left brain model, I haven't heard anybody do that before, but that's what I do.
Today.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I loved that episode. I hope you guys just open your minds a little bit and don't eat too much chocolate. Okay.
Yeah. Don't eat chocolate at my house.
No.
When my wife's gone. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That's very specific, but if you do come to their house, don't eat the chocolate there. Okay, well, until next time, love you, Dad.
Love you too, honey.